Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of Surviving Life's Pickles. So happy that you have joined us today, wherever, whenever you're listening to us. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to listen to us and what we have to share today. Before we dive into our episode, just like we start everyone off, we're going to start with gratitude. And I have a wonderful guest here today, Alyssa Burnham, and I'm going to ask her to start about what she's grateful for today.
Thank you. Grateful for the ability to work from home. It was very much needed today, so I was glad that I was able to work from home today.
That flexibility is super nice when you have that.
I know, I know not everyone has it, but I really recommend if you can. That's good.
Yeah, take the time if you need it,
Yeah.
right? Well, I'm grateful for everything going on in our life right now. I've been complaining that it's super busy and we have lots going on, but at the end of the day, I feel like we're really making a difference and we've got a lot of great things planned. So, among the chaos and the craziness and the planning and putting all these different things together that we have going on over the next few weeks, I'm really grateful for the opportunity because I'm learning and I'm growing from being able to put my men's retreat together and my keynote speech and teach suicide prevention, all these things coming up in the next few weeks. And so I've learned a lot and I feel like I've become a little bit more humble, a little bit more understanding by researching and doing these experiences. So I'm really grateful for that.
That's awesome. That's a great perspective to have on it.
We could look at it the other way.
I tend to do that first. It takes me a minute.
So, well, and I'm also grateful for you and the opportunity to sit here with you because we had an amazing time last week.
Yeah, I would agree.
So last week, I was able to finally teach my first mental health first aid course with Alyssa as my co-teacher. I got invited to go help her. She's a pro. She actually does this type of thing for a living. And so I got to go watch her teach and co-teach with her. And it was a great experience.
Yeah, I think so. I've done a couple other ones teaching this mental health first aid course, but this was a really good one to be able to do in person. I like how we were able to split it up and do like every other segment. I liked being able to watch you teach different segments and pick up on some things.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable. And we had the great opportunity to actually do this up at Hill Air Force Base, where there is a very obvious need for that type of course in the military. From what I gathered, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that course is pretty much implemented into their structure as they are certifying their peer support people. Is that what you understood?
It looks like it, like it's a component of it, and there's different routes that people can go to get that title as like a peer support volunteer, but that's like a starting place that they can start out at. That's my understanding.
Kind of the basics. They have to go through Safe Talk suicide prevention. They have to go through mental health first aid. And then it sounds like they had a couple other like military courses that they would go through.
Yeah,
That's
more
kind of-
specific.
Yeah, more specific to their structure. Well, that's why I invited Alyssa here today with us, is we wanted to talk about mental health first aid in the community, in businesses, and what we're seeing as far as good and bad effects of being able to implement this into your culture. But first, let's learn a little bit more about you, Alyssa. I know you that this is what you do full time. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so I do a lot of trainings, mainly focused on suicide prevention, but of course, mental health is a component of that. So the mental health first aid curriculum ties in really well to what I do. I'm a health educator first and foremost. I originally wanted to be like a school health teacher, and I did that for a couple of years. That was really cool. From there, I kind of transitioned into the public health sector. I really gravitated towards topics that are sometimes seen as like maybe a little more taboo in some spaces, or people aren't as interested in talking about them. So I like dove into sex ed and reproductive health for a while. From there, I went into like opioid and overdose prevention, and from there into suicide prevention. So yeah, my main role right now is working from a public health lens and scope in suicide prevention. So like on a population level, what does that look like?
Okay. I didn't know that you were teaching some of those in the past. I mean, that's some pretty heavy stuff that you've got into.
It is. I don't know. I think I learned a lot like from my middle school and high school health teachers, a lot of conversations that I think people, like maybe parents from my parents' generation, were maybe like, well, you don't explicitly teach these things to your kids. Nobody explicitly taught me. You just learn
Yeah.
as you go.
You learn from experience. It's not talked about.
Yeah, and so I really like being a resource to like my friends and family, and then of course the communities that I work in.
Yeah. Well, it's great everything that you're doing. I know you work with a lot of great organizations like NAMI and AFSP. What other suicide prevention organizations do you work with?
Those are kind of like the big ones in Utah. There's so many people doing that work, like within their individual organizations. A lot of it ties to our state's suicide prevention coalition. And they run like Live On. It's our state suicide prevention campaign. And there's a lot of wonderful people in that space, like all across the state and all sorts of different sectors who are col- collaborating in this work.
Yeah, and that is the great thing that I've learned as we started diving into this is there really are so many resources, but the biggest problem is getting the information out.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people realize how many resources are available to them and are free to them in a time of need.
Yeah. And these are for everyone. I think some people still have a little bit of that stigma of like, oh, well, it's not for me. I'm not like, I don't know, not necessarily for me, but like it's really for everyone. If
Right. I
that makes
mean,
sense.
they have youth classes, younger child classes, older adult classes, regular classes, men, women. I mean, pretty much everybody. You can find a course specific for
Yeah.
that type of person and what you're struggling with.
Yeah. Even like what you're doing with people like working in certain industries, there's industry specific suicide prevention, mental health promotion type of stuff going on.
Well, it's amazing what you're doing, and I commend you because it's hard. It's a lot every day to have to go through that, to go to work and to deal with this type of subject. But it's very rewarding, is what I've been finding too. It's sometimes draining, but at the end of the day, you get that I'm doing something meaningful. You're just not serving somebody a burger at a restaurant.
I know, which I mean, I haven't served burgers, but I've worked retail and stuff. And yeah, even bad days doing suicide prevention, I still can find something good in it, whereas I couldn't always in other jobs that I
Right.
worked in.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about mental health first aid. We had the opportunity to be on base. Very needed space for this course. Really quick, let's just kind of run through a few of the key pieces of the curriculum. And then I just want to dive into your thoughts as you've become an instructor about why this is so needed in businesses and in the community and what it can do for us. So, correct me if I miss anything. I'm going to run down a list here. Mental health first aid, first and foremost, we want to increase mental health awareness in the space that we're going in. If it's a business, if it's the community, if it's, the military, we want to be able to increase mental health awareness. That's the first thing, the first key to mental health first aid. The next one is anybody can do mental health first aid. You don't have to be a therapist. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be anything. You can learn the basic skills on how to help somebody. The next one is the education part and giving people knowledge about what mental health challenges are, what mental health disorders are, and kind of breaking those down by category so you understand a little bit more about each type of disorder and challenge that people can address.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the program is that we teach that recovery is possible. It doesn't matter if it's a mental health challenge, a mental health disorder, a substance abuse, suicide ideation, any of these topics, you can recover from them if you put in the work and have the knowledge.
Yeah.
Next thing about mental health first aid is we want to reduce the stigma about a lot of these topics we talk about. And you hear all the time about just one scenario is police incidents where the police respond to an incident. It is not understood because maybe there is a person there that has a mental health disorder and they function differently and they don't understand what's really happening. And so it's misinterpreted and things can happen wrong or correct ways just depending on the training that the police officers have.
Right.
So that's kind of one example of reducing the stigma is letting everybody know, okay, these are out there. Let's assess the situations a little bit better before we react to them.
Yes. And I like how there's a focus on, like, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what somebody's experiencing. I don't need to know your diagnosis to help you, to provide you mental health first aid. I can just notice signs and symptoms and then use what I learn in the course to be able to help out.
Yeah. And the next thing, like you just said, is understanding an individual's background and experience can really help you be a mental health first aider, but also help you understand a person that may be struggling with a situation. And so everybody comes from different backgrounds. We were all raised differently, different cultures, different society, different religions, all these things. And so you can take all those skills and all those things you've learned throughout your life and apply it to mental health first aid so that you're able to understand a person a little bit better because we are all different.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So those are kind of like the basic principles. Did I miss anything?
I think culture, it's not necessarily like a main component of mental health first aid, but I notice it's weaved into the curriculum quite a bit and how it just encourages us to think about culture when we're applying mental health first aid, um, and how that might impact how we interact with other
Right.
people or what like a mental health challenge or what help looks like to
Yeah.
different people. That's something I really like about the curriculum.
Well, and you hit it right there as culture. And that can be the society you're living in, that can be your ethnic background. But as we're kind of sitting here talking today, it's really the culture of your work environment that we want to talk about and how that plays a huge part in your mental health. And if you want to implement a program like mental health first aid, how that can help kind of really increase the awareness in the culture, but make it more accepted. So you kind of take that stigma part out in your work culture.
Right.
Okay.
Like you can do a mental health first aid course, but are people going to be able to apply it in that setting? Like, depending on the culture that's there, you know?
Right. Right. Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. From your experience doing this for a handful of years now, working with different groups and being able to teach mental health first aid or suicide prevention, what have you noticed kind of as you plan to do a course? And then after a course, what do you see the difference of how it's received and how people are maybe interacting with each other pre course and post course as you're kind of going through it?
Mm, I think I notice it more with the mental health first aid because it's longer, and we spend a little bit more time with people. And I think we really just kind of I see a shift in the participants' confidence. Like even in some of these trainings that I do that are just like an hour and a half long, just the confidence. There's a lot of people who are walking into the training like never having had these conversations before, not knowing what it might look like to help someone out who's having a mental health challenge or somebody who's experiencing thoughts of suicide. And by the end of it, even if they're not totally like I can do this 100%. They're more confident and they're more, okay, I think I can. There's like a little bit of empowerment. And I think that shows when they're completed whatever training it was.
One is the knowledge. It's that knowledge component. I think you're more confident, you're more collected
Mm.
in a situation if you have knowledge.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is with any training, especially in this subject, any type of information that you can gain to help yourself understand something a little bit better is going to help de-escalate the situation.
Yeah. Totally.
And example, say you have an employee that comes to you, says, "Hey, I'm having a rough day." A lot of the time, they're like, "You know what? Suck it up. Go back to work. Leave your personal stuff at home. We need to focus on our job, what we're doing. You can deal with it after hours."
Yeah.
In reality, that doesn't happen. You can't leave your personal stuff at the door when you walk in. It's part of you.
Yeah.
It's embedded in you. It's why you're there. You're working to deal with your personal stuff, to have a life outside of work. And so I that is one of the biggest stigmas for me when it goes into just in your business, specifically in the construction industrial industry that we're really working in, is That's part of who you are. You can't take that away from the person. And so we need to understand how to help a person in that situation and have them be able to still work, provide for their family, whatever they need to do when they are struggling with something.
Consequences of that, of not being able to help someone, is they are gonna stop showing up, I would imagine. They're gonna stop showing up, they're gonna take more sick days, or, like, even more dire consequences. They're no longer gonna be able to work because they're not being able to take care of themselves fully,
Yeah.
so we have to take it into consideration.
Well, and I don't have it in front of me and I should have grabbed it, but I want to say that the statistics that we have in our course is over 10 million people a year take at least one day off for a mental health challenge or disorder.
Yeah.
That's a big number.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I do, like, certainly on a regular basis. I think it's depending on, like, what work environment you're in, that can be, like, a really hush hush thing, or it can be a very, like, open thing, like, you have your designated mental health days that you can take, and so there's definitely a spectrum in what that looks like, but yeah, I could see that being very
Well, like with our class in the military, they're in life or death situations. I mean, some of those guys that were in there are, they were training for combat, a couple of the officers that were
Mhm.
in that class. And they need to know and have the skills to be able to react. And if somebody comes to them in a morning where they know they're going into a situation that could be very volatile, they need to understand what's going on with that person, understand how to help them because they need them there and they need them to be on their A game so that one, they don't hurt themselves or get themselves killed, but two, so they can protect their team and everybody around them as well. That's why I was really excited to be a part of teaching there on base, is because it's very, very vital that they know how to deal with this type of situation.
Yeah, you're right, that's not a mental "I'm gonna take a mental health day" kinda
No,
environment.
no, but being able to understand that somebody might be struggling, talk them through it, let them know you're there to support them, and
Yeah,
that we're going to get through what we're doing right now, and then we're going to take the time to help you and work through it. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues that you can take when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm struggling with this." It might not be the right time, and it might not be a crisis moment where you can have that conversation with them and be able to say, "Okay, let's put these things in place. Let's get our stuff done that we need to today, and then let's revisit it afterwards and talk about how we can really put a plan and help you."
yeah. That's something I really like about mental health first aid is a lot of the other trainings that I do, they are suicide prevention focused. They're very like in a crisis situation, how do you prevent suicide? And that's why I really like mental health first aid, and I really try to push that more people to engage with that, is because there's a lot of information on, preventing things from getting to a crisis point. Like over half of the course is, helping someone when they're experiencing a challenge, a mental health challenge, rather than that crisis, which is huge. And you'll run into that way more often than you'll run into a crisis.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. What are a few key points in your mind that we discuss in the mental health first aid as far as on the prevention side? How do we teach them? What information does the course provide somebody that's going to help them with that prevention part?
Yeah. To me, the main things are like being able to recognize signs and symptoms, like even in a very general sense, that somebody might be experiencing a mental health challenge, might not, but they could be, and how you can recognize that, and then that action plan for what can you do. And it's a pretty like flexible action plan, which I think is really helpful when you can use it in so many different situations.
Well, one thing that, as far as the prevention and some of the skills we teach, that I learned personally that really opened my eyes was talking and teaching people how to actually listen non-judgmentally.
Yeah.
It is something you say that and you're like, "Oh, I can do that." But it really is a skill that has to be practiced on a continual basis to be able to do it,
Yeah.
especially in a lot of business settings. A lot of people want to be the person to speak up. They want to be the person with the information and the go-to guy or the go-to person. And to be able to sit back and just listen to somebody, take in what they're saying, process it, and not give your opinion back so that you're able to then give them the information or provide some resources that maybe will help them with what they're dealing with, that's huge.
Yeah, that is that's something that I still catch myself having to work on.
I think it's something we all deal with for
Yeah,
sure. But
right.
being able to teach that
Mm,
for people who aren't very good at it or people who need to get better at it, I really enjoy that part. I really enjoy showing them that you can do this. And it's a huge component of being able to help somebody when they're struggling with substance abuse or, a divorce or issues at home, any of these things that come up in our daily lives. If you can sit back and listen to that person, sometimes that's all they need.
definitely. I like the I like the listening non-judgmentally piece, and then I think the part that helps me with that is the, giving reassurance piece because I my brain goes towards give your thoughts, give advice, give your opinion, but knowing that it should be listen non-judgmentally and then give reassurance and information, and that gives me something else because I do feel like I need to say something. I can be reassuring. I can say, thank you for telling me about, like, what's been going on. That sounds like it's been really difficult, you know?
Yeah.
That is so much more helpful than my thoughts a lot of the time.
Well, it is, and you don't think about it. You're like, hey, I can help you. I've done this. But sometimes just what you said, thank you for sharing. That can be very difficult to go through. People don't understand how that little phrase, just by using that, can really make a difference in somebody's life.
Yeah. The more you do it, the more you have these conversations, definitely the better you get at it, in my opinion, in my experience, and you kind of find, like, a flow in language that feels comfortable for you, and definitely thanking someone when they're, like, open with me is something that I pretty much always do. It just feels right, and it also kinda allows me a moment to, you know, acknowledge that. That's big, and I appreciate someone trusting me with that information.
Especially in the construction world where I'm at, that's something that doesn't happen. A lot of, manly men working away, they don't want to share their feelings because one, they'll never get acknowledged for it. Two, if somebody would share that, their feelings with them, they feel like they would probably brush it off. And so it is having that sense of caring, being able to acknowledge if somebody really sits down and shares something with them that makes a huge difference in what they're going through.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a one piece that I absolutely love that we teach is how to listen non-judgmentally and then how to, come back and talk to them about the reassurance. Give
Mhm.
them reassurance and not give them advice, but
Yeah.
give them the resources that they can start to look at what is the best option for them depending on what they're going through.
Yeah. I I like that part too. That was something that I think mental health first aid taught me when I first took the training was on that last components of the action plan are encouraging appropriate professional help and then encouraging self-help strategies. And I think just like with my background and my experience, I like to me professional help looks like one thing. It looks like contacting somebody who's like licensed, who's certified, and like this or that. And I still think that's very valuable, but I need to have space for other types of help that would be like best for the person, right? It's not what would be best for me, it's what's best for the person. So if they have another type of self help that they would rather engage in that would be helpful for them, or maybe there's somebody else that they would talk to, like a friend or a family member, and I don't see that it's an emergency situation where they need to access that crisis care, then I can encourage that too, and that can be valuable too.
Well, one thing with teaching mental health first aid in a business is we want to work with that business prior and get the information of like their EAPs. So we understand what options they provide for their employees. So as we're teaching first aid in that business, we're teaching it specifically for what they have available.
Mhm.
So we can give them the information of you have X, Y, and Z available to you through your insurance. You have X, Y, and Z available to you through the state. You have this available to you through our employment office that we offer here, depending on what they have. But we try to implement that in. So you're providing the information that is current and the information that is really valuable to what they're dealing with in their specific situation. And that's why I like the mental health first aid as well, is because you can take that information, integrate it into what you're teaching so that now it is personable. It is relevant to what they're doing. You're not sharing something that a company over here does, but they don't have the option for it. It's really, hey, these are the things that can help you here.
Right. This was a really good one, I think, for teaching on base in particular, because they have a whole network of their own resources. And, even like contacting 911 looks different on base.
Yes.
Like, so it was really good that we're able to have that flexibility to make sure that we're giving them the best information for the environment that they're in.
Yeah, and depending on the situation, in some of the big mines that I go to, like you don't call 911 either. They
Mm.
have their own first responders, everything there on the mine site
Yeah.
because they can react faster. And that's what they're trained to do. And that's one thing that about teaching some of this mental health first aid on some of those mine sites is very helpful as well. Because again, a lot of these places are a couple hours away from getting help to them. Even Kennecott, you're 45 minutes to an hour to get an ambulance or somebody up there. That's why they have their responders on site.
Right.
And it's amazing when you're able to have that resource available right now when
Yeah.
somebody's struggling, or if it's a non-crisis situation, you can send them to somebody without sending them off-site or sending them away, to go a couple hours where maybe something can happen during that time. I think that's really crucial to be able to train your people there to have the skills, have the knowledge about how to help people, even if it's something small where, they have a panic attack. Or if it's something as big as, they're having suicide ideation and they don't want to go home today. They have the skills and the range to be able to really jump in and help
Yeah.
by some of the skills that they learned through this course.
Yeah. And that confidence of like, okay, I know what I'm doing.
So I wanted to ask you, as we were teaching this course last week, it was very quiet at first. Everybody kind of didn't know what to take. I don't think they really understood a little bit what they were getting into, but it really started to flow the deeper we got into it. And we created a pretty safe space where a lot of the students were open and
Yeah.
sharing personal things that we could all relate to.
Yeah. I definitely noticed that. Day 2 was very different than day 1.
Yes.
We split it up into 2 days. So that second day, yeah, people were walking in like more open. I
Yeah.
could see it.
I think we see that as you teach the class, you give the information and some of the knowledge up front, and then you start diving into how to use that information and knowledge. And we really create a safe space so that you feel okay to share your personal experiences and how they relate to what you're learning, because somebody else in that room probably thinking the same thing or probably had a similar experience that they can relate to as well.
Right.
I think that's a great attribute about being able to teach this is the connection that we get
Yeah.
with the people. And that's a big part that even the facilitator that was there on base, when we started this course, his emphasis was the connection.
Yeah.
You want to be able to connect to other people in a situation or in a time of need. And that is the biggest reason that a lot of them are in that course, is to provide that connection or that, I guess, support when they have to go through something hard. Maybe they need to take them and they'll have somebody by their side. They don't have to do it alone. And so it really is providing that safe place to learn that connection is so important
Yeah.
when it comes to anything, when it comes to mental health.
It is. I remember one of the students brought up a question. If I am going to help this person, or how do I not single them out or make sure that they're not like that I'm using what I know about them and what they're going through to, like, I don't know, put them in an awkward situation by essentially just asking, how do I ask this person if they're doing okay without making them feel like I'm singling them out? And I think my answer was kind of something along the lines of, let's maybe get into the practice where we're regularly asking others how they're doing, and then it doesn't feel like we're singling that person out. So, that little encouragement to let's practice connection, like
Another piece of-
everything. Yeah.
Right.
And then it will feel more natural when it's, kind of drives us into applying that mental health first aid.
Well, and connection is really a key piece to anything that we do in life. But when it comes to mental health and suicide, very, very strongly. Is connection one of the biggest things?
Huge, yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was like 68% of people who have somebody reach out to them in a moment of crisis don't follow through.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
And it can really just be, like, just as simple as that. Like, obviously, we wanna connect the person to help whenever possible, but it can really some like, that in itself can just be life-saving of just that person sitting with them and just, "How are you doing?
Right.
To see how it's going."
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and some of your suicide prevention courses that you taught, what do you guys talk about as far as on that connection piece?
It's it's really big. The most popular class that I teach is called QPR, and it stands for Question, Persuade, Refer, and it's a pretty general, like, sort of process that you go through if you encounter someone that might be thinking about suicide. And that middle piece, the P is for persuade, and it's persuading someone to stay alive, which sounds really complex. Really, what that step is mostly just listening non judgmentally and then any opportunity you can to provide connection and reignite hope. That's really it. For most of that step, you're silent and then just, thanking them. Thank you for telling me, and will you let me help you get help? And it's also connection is often like the answer to, I think, a lot of questions that participants bring up about what do I do in this situation or what do I do in that situation? That connection piece is really big. It's the answer to a lot of questions that I get.
It is. It's probably the biggest part of
Mhm.
everything we're talking about is just really connecting that person on the level that they need at the time.
Yeah, and it can even be, like, with a total stranger too. This It's great if you have, like, a history with this person and that person has felt connected to you for a long time. A lot of times that's not necessarily gonna be the case. You can have a connection with someone that you've never made a connection with before, and it can just be just as simple as, "How's it going?" or, "I noticed this. I'm concerned about you," and just being with that person.
Well, in teaching the class, I felt like I was able to connect with each one of those students in a different way, on a different level, where we understood kind of where they were at. But even outside of that, one thing with connection that I've noticed is so big is how many times have you been at the grocery store? Just walking down the aisle, minding your own business, just getting what you need, and you look up at somebody and you just smile at them. Sometimes that's all they need for connection for that day to change everything.
It's so true. That's my I love going for a walk around my neighborhood and just, like, making eye contact with people and getting those little smiles. It can turn my whole day around.
Well, that's one thing we kind of teach is connection doesn't have to be going up and have a conversation with somebody. It can be that eye contact, just letting them know you notice them, smiling at them, letting them know, hey, you know what? It's okay to be happy. It's some of that nonverbal communication that we kind of go into in the course that really can make a difference in somebody's life. It's just not having that conversation. It's sometimes just making that contact so they know that they're seen
Yeah.
or they know that they're heard, acknowledging them if they say something.
Mhm.
It's a big deal.
It is.
I notice it. We have, two young teenage ish boys, and even sometimes in the house, you talk to them and they don't say anything. They don't acknowledge you. It's just kind of the generation right now. They just kind of ignore you because I don't want to talk to them. I don't know. So they just ignore you.
Yeah. It's an interest they I mean, I think COVID during those, like, really these moments where they are learning how to be social and interact and connect with people, I think having dealing with that pandemic during that time really will see interesting they'll develop in a different way, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, that definitely changed things for
Mhm.
sure. One of these days, I think that maybe we won't talk about COVID, but I don't think we're ever going to not talk about it,
I know.
unfortunately, because it really impacted mental health. It really impacted society. It really impacted connection. All these things were such a big part of coming out on the other side. Some of
Yeah,
them positive, some of them negative.
I know. Well, working in public health, that's the first thing people think of a lot of times when I say I work in public health is vaccines.
All that kind of stuff, right? Well, as you've been teaching some of these other classes, what are a couple other things or situations that you see become positive after teaching the class and giving these people some of the skills and information that mental health first aid provides?
Think I definitely like that confidence piece, that knowledge piece, more questions. My favorite things is when like I work with like an organization or a company and they then follow up because they have more questions or they wanted to learn more or like, hey, you mentioned this resource. Could you get that resource to me? I love a follow-up email, sending some additional resources. Here's some other trainings I have that you might be interested in. And when people see it as kind of like the start of hopefully learning more or creating something like more comprehensive for their organization or they want to dive in more.
Kind of that, a little bit of that shift in that culture that they're like, hey, we need more of this. Let's accept this. Let's
Mhm.
kind of move forward type thing.
Doesn't always happen,
No.
but yeah,
No.
I like it when it does.
No, it's great when you can see that you're making a difference and you can see the actual change that people want to help each other better. They want to become better. They want to learn. They want to provide a safer work environment, a safer community, for everybody around them, which is great.
Yeah. Can I ask you what you notice people change or the different outcomes when you teach things?
I think the biggest thing is noticing that people try to understand things better as you're teaching them so that they can relate to it. I
Mhm.
think that's one thing that I really notice is when they're really diving in and they really are invested in when we're up there teaching some of this information, that as they're gaining that knowledge, you can kind of see that shift of, hey, you know what? Okay, this
Yeah.
isn't so hard. I have the tools, I have the information, I am human. And really that's the biggest piece is realizing that you can make a difference.
Yeah.
And I think there was a couple people in that class that I really noticed that with when we were done. That you could tell that they got some really good information out of it and they felt like, you know what, I'm going to take this back and I'm going to make a difference in my department that I'm working in.
Yeah.
Really got that from a few of them and that was awesome to watch that happen.
Yeah. I like when you can see them, like the gears in their head applying it already. Like, okay, what's this going to look like when I'm out of the classroom? What's it going to, um, and their questions start to get a little bit more precise about how they're going to start applying it. And you see them thinking a little bit more.
So after teaching a few of these classes, you say you love having the questions afterwards. Some of the questions that you get from some of these people that make you realize they're really engaged and they really want to do more.
A lot of times just that. It'll be like a little nugget that I'll throw out in one of the trainings that somebody takes, and they're like, "I wanna know more about that in particular. Ooh, that sounds like something that I really need or we really need here." I'll talk about postvention, for example, which is just what you do after a crisis, specifically when somebody dies by suicide. What's the care that we give to that community that's impacted to ensure that there's not any adverse or harmful effects to that group, or we can sort of like minimize the harm caused by that death. And so sometimes something like that, I'll get a follow up. What's to do with that post pension thing? Is that something that we could make in a policy, or do you have examples of what this looks like? And I'm like, yes, yeah, little things like that, or like other resources here and there that I'll just kind of casually mention. Somebody's like, hey, what about that in
Yeah.
particular? That sounds like something I needed.
Well, it's that planning piece. It's they're engaged because they want to plan before something happens.
Which unfortunately, I think being in suicide prevention, a lot of times I get notified after a community has experienced a tragedy, and then they start thinking, "How can we prevent
Yeah.
this?" But we suicide prevention people are available way before that, and ideally, we wanna have prevention measures and knowledge and
Yeah.
information in place before a tragedy happens.
Well, that's one thing. When it really comes down to, I think that is my favorite part about what we get to teach people is the self-care part where we're teaching how to have a pre-plan, how to have a daily plan, and then how to build that post plan in case something does happen. And understanding that everybody's plan is going to look a little different.
Yeah.
And I use this scenario. I think I did talk about this in the class. Me and my wife were able to, unfortunately, we were in the middle of a tragic car accident. We were the car right behind the two people that hit. She was able to run over, help the person in the one car. They were trying to get him out, do a CPR and everything on them. While I was helping put a fire out on the other car. And we had to deal with that situation very differently after the fact. She was a little okay. She's had a lot more CPR training, a lot more on the scene stuff just because of what she does. Me, I kind of had a little bit of a freak out. It was the first time I'd had to deal with that in a long time. And it took a very different path for me to get through that. I wish that I would have known beforehand to kind of have a plan in place of, if I come up on an incident like this and I have to deal with it, then these are the steps that I'm going to have to do afterwards so I can make sure I'm okay.
Yeah.
And now I kind of have that plan put in place, which is great because now I know how to react after a moment like that.
Yeah. It's really valuable. And it's something like my self-care plans or even like safety plans are like living plans. I learn pretty much every time that I need to use it, something that I should probably change about it for next time.
Yeah. Well, it's fluid. It needs to be changed.
Yeah.
One thing about the pre-plan is before you're ever entering a situation, it can be a medical situation, it can be a mental health crisis situation, lots of different situations. You have to take that self-evaluation quiz really quick with yourself, making sure that you're physically okay to enter the situation, that you're mentally in a spot to help the situation. Because if you're not, you could make the situation a lot worse very quickly.
Yeah.
So these are questions that everybody needs to be prepared to ask themselves when something like that happens. First responders, firefighters, police, paramedics, it all kind of just comes with the territory. They build that in and it happens automatically for them. Hey,
Right.
we know we're going into the situation right now. This, and this. Yep, I'm good. But as just regular civilians and people in everyday life, we will come into those type of situations. It might even just be a situation at home where we've got to defuse or we've got to enter it properly so it doesn't become something bigger. And you've got to ask those questions to yourself. So having that conversation and thinking about it beforehand and writing them down, understanding that I need to ask these to myself before I go in to make sure it is the right thing to do.
Yeah. I'd add to that some people that you can maybe tag in if you can't do it. So start thinking of, who are those people? If today's not the day for me to take on this role, to have this conversation, who can I call in to help with that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then you go into the daily, you know, have a daily plan. What are you going to do for yourself today? If something comes up today, how am I going to deal with it? Again, it's just having that structure
Mhm.
and having that put together so you understand that you can make it through the day and you have this plan in place so you feel a bit safer and you feel better about the day. And, it's okay if something happens because guess what? You're prepared for it.
Yeah.
You can't be prepared for every situation, but
Right.
you can have a basic idea or a basic outline in your mind of how you can deal with the situation if it comes up.
Yeah. I notice when we get to that segment in the mental health first aid course where people are going in and actually like writing down different components of what a self-care plan would look like for them. There are some people you say, okay, go ahead and start writing it down. And some people dive right in and I always see like quite a few who just kind of sit there for a moment and you can tell maybe they've never thought about this before. They've never considered what I do? What do I need to do to make sure that I'm like good emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, all the above. So I think it's good if you haven't done that just to take a moment to consider that and get like a general idea down of what that looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the post plan. The post plan is, how do you go about dealing with a situation? And it could be as simple as, what, you had a fight at home. What are you going to do after the fight to take care of yourself so that you can re enter the situation or move on or whatever the next step is, depending on what happened? Having something in place. Do you have that person to reach out to? A family member, a friend, a coworker, a therapist? Who is that person? And you probably list multiple people because situations will be different.
Yeah,
And there's some people you can talk about certain things with, and there's some you can't.
totally. You could throw in some other like any sort of like warm lines, like even if it's not necessarily like a crisis situation where I'd call the suicide and crisis lifeline, throw in like the Utah warm line number, for example. If it's like a situation where it's like maybe none of my friends are available that I would normally call about this, or maybe it's something that maybe I don't want to talk to them about necessarily right now, having like an anonymous other party available next to that
Yeah.
could be a good other alternative for
Yeah.
those situations too.
It's just, again, feeling comfortable that you know what you need to do and having that kind of put together. Another thing with your post plan is making sure you have that decompression time. A lot of time when we get into situations, and I'll use the example of just being in a situation at work. If you are a manager, you have a difficult conversation with an employee, and it was really hard on you to have that difficult conversation. You need to be able to debrief from that. You don't want to take that home. You don't want to carry that around with you. You want to be able to kind of let it go. You've had the conversation. Now it's time to move forward. But you've got to have that step in your head of how do I get through this so I don't carry it around? And I want to say I see that way more than I see the opposite of them just carrying it. They have resentment for people. Oh, I had to have this conversation with this person, and they carry it around for weeks. If you can kind of have a plan in your head of, all right, I have to have a hard conversation, but afterwards, this is how I'm going to work through it myself.
Yeah,
This is really important.
it is. I'll notice that. I'll notice. I'll complain about something one too many times to the same person and they start to give you a look like it's time for you to let it go.
Yeah, it's time for you to let it go. It's time for you to move on.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we really teach in that self-care portion is how to set those up, how to
Yeah.
work through that, how to put those plans together so you can have a more enjoyable life yourself.
Hmm.
And that's a big part of being any type of first responder, mental health first aider, anybody in that type of field is being able to still enjoy your life and not let what you're dealing with overcome it or take over.
Yeah. Yeah. So that you can be there for others fully. Because, yeah, if you're in a space where you're not able to, it could not go well.
Right. Well, and it could turn the tables really quickly and you could end up in a similar situation
Right.
if you're not taking care of yourself and realizing it and being able to acknowledge
Right.
that you need to take those steps.
Yeah.
So well, let's talk about resources. Suicide prevention here in Utah, mental health first aid. What resources are really available to everybody as far as the public out there right now? Because I know you work in that field, you deal with this on a regular basis, and so let's kind of talk about some of these main resources that people can look up or go to if any of these type of situations come up.
Yeah. Have so many.
You can list them all because you know what? That's what we're here for is providing information. So
Yeah. I mean, definitely starting with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. I think if you know one thing, I would just start with that.
it's 988, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
The number is 988. It used to be a long 1-800 number that I never memorized. So you can still contact that number. You'll still get connected to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. But now the only number you need to remember is
988.
988. And it's for suicidal crises or other crises that people are going through. If you call and they decide maybe this isn't a crisis, maybe this is more of a something you'd want to talk to like a peer, like a certified peer support specialist about, they can transfer you to the Utah Warm Line and you can talk with them. But they're a really great resource. It's a really good place to start, I think, in a lot of situations where somebody's experiencing a mental health crisis or challenge. And it's great for support people as well. If you're in a situation where you're like, I'm not sure how to help this person, I'm concerned about them, that they may be in crisis, you can contact 988 as well and get some help or advice on how you might be able to help this person.
Okay. And just a quick little story about 988 is we had to one of our sons was having a really hard time and we felt that at the moment we didn't understand where he was quite at and we couldn't provide the help that he needed. So we called 988. They actually sent a therapist and a peer support person out to the house to talk with him. And they had a great conversation with him, with me there, and then a few minutes without me there because that's what he requested. And they were able to help him put his little self-care plan together so that he could get through that next step. So it really can be something as simple as somebody's really struggling and have a tough time with something. They want to help you get through it because they don't want it to go to the next side of that. And so they will take all the necessary steps to either connect you with somebody on the phone, meet with you in person, send you to a support group, really amazing structure of what they've put together. And that is ran by the University of Utah. Is that correct?
Yeah, Huntsman Mental Health Institute, which is part of the University of Utah.
Okay.
Here in Utah, at least.
Right. So it's a great resource. A 988 is available countrywide, same number, correct?
Yeah, countrywide, same number. There are different local authorities that take on those calls and texts in each area, but in Utah, it's the Huntsman Mental Health Institute. They have a whole team dedicated to that type of crisis care.
What other resources are out there that somebody could reach out to as far as if they wanted education or if they needed help? What else is out there?
Yeah. Live on Utah. It's our state's suicide prevention campaign. There's really good information there. They've got just like some quick stuff on like just quick topics, warning signs in particular. If you're going to learn anything about suicide prevention, I would learn what warning signs are for suicide so that you're able to recognize them. So you can look at things like that. They also break down some different topics in like different sectors, resources that are more specific to specific groups like suicide prevention with youth, suicide prevention in workplaces, suicide prevention with LGBTQ plus individuals, with military members and veterans.
Elderly, divorcees, yeah, a few different categories.
They've got some different categories there. And then they also have the Live On playbooks, which are just like some self-paced lessons that anyone can go through to learn about suicide prevention. Those are great. They have 3 of them right now. There's the original playbook, they have Live On Latino, and then the military playbook. Each one is tailored a bit more to those specific populations. But that's great if someone is like, I want to learn more about suicide prevention. I might not necessarily be able to attend like a live training. That can be a really good place to start.
That's something I didn't know. I didn't know those were available. So that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's self-paced. Do it when you have some time and, learn a little bit of information so you can help. I love that.
They're really good. And they were made like locally as well, informed by local people. They're awesome. I think another good resource that kind of breaks things down like by population or setting or sector would be the Suicide Prevention Resource Center. It's sprc.org. They have a whole search tool with a ton of stuff in it. So if you're looking for something in particular, like suicide prevention in older adult populations, you can go to their search tool and kind of narrow it down, or like specifically like workplaces, men, and you can really narrow down different resources through that tool.
Very specific resources that you can hopefully find.
Yeah.
Let's see what else is out there. There is a program that I wanted to touch on, and I don't remember who was providing this, but there's a program here in Utah for free gun locks.
Yeah.
Who is providing that program, and how can somebody reach out if they're looking for that information? Do you remember?
So I know the state health department was doing it for a while. I'm not sure if they're still doing it. That would be something I'd look at utahsuicideprevention.org. That's the county's, or not the county, the state suicide prevention coalition, and see if they have that information there. I know in Salt Lake County, all of the Salt Lake County libraries give out free gun locks. They also give out free naloxone, just another little bonus thing. So yeah, but I'd have to look into a little bit further. I mean, I do. You could check with your local health department. Those are always good resources for free gun locks.
What about, I know NAMI has a program. Is that just anybody can reach out to as far as reaching out to NAMI for help with that? Or is that
for free gun locks?
Yeah, for free gun locks, or is that more just directed through the state?
You could start there. I just know a lot of people get them through like the State Department of Health and Human Services. So you could start there if you're looking for like a larger amount, like if you want to be able to distribute them. But if you're looking for like just for personal use, I'd check your local library, your local health department, sometimes like a local fire department. Some of these folks will have them just for personal use to give away.
And one thing, just in case somebody listening out there is part of the military reserve or has a family member, the bases all have a resource for free gun locks. You just go to your local advocate there on base, in the health department on base, or the mental health people there, and they can provide free gun locks too. So I think it's a great program to be able to give those out.
Yeah.
So it's very, very needed. I mean, we're very pro gun. Guns are great. You can have fun with them. They're very useful. Lots of things you can do with them, but they need to be handled correctly, and you need to be able to keep them safe, when they're not in use, especially from, smaller kids and teenagers and things like that. It's very important to make sure they understand that too.
Yeah. There's a new initiative called Gun Safe Families. I believe it's just gunsafefamilies.org, but they're local and they got a bunch of funding to do like an educational and awareness campaign, but also to distribute some free biometric gun safes to people who need them. So I would look at that resource as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else you can think of as far as local, as far as resources that people can look at if they wanted to get training
Mm.
or, take a class? Where can they look up to, look where those are held and how do those go about?
Yeah. We have some really great nonprofits that do these trainings. NAMI puts on some of these trainings. They also have support groups as well for people living with mental illness or family members of people living with mental illness. So you could go to NAMI.org or NAMIUT.org for our local Utah chapter and see what kind of trainings they're offering. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, or the AFSP, if you look at afsp.org, they have a ton of great resources, and as well as they also offer trainings and additional help. So afsp.org for that one. I would check with your local health department or your state health department. A lot of them have suicide prevention professionals or can point you in those directions. And there was one more that I was going to say. Well, I'd check with like your local community coalitions as well. So this could be a lot of cities have like coalitions that will often, some of them are focused on mental health and have events like and trainings like that. But definitely if you're in Utah, I'd look at the state's suicide prevention coalition. It's Utah Suicide Prevention.org is their website. They meet bi-monthly, but that's a great place to learn about all of the resources and everything going on, like suicide prevention related in our state, see what kind of trainings and events are coming up. And I believe, I'm not sure if they still have a calendar of events, but that's the place where I'd go if you want to be connected to what's going on at a state level.
Kind of get involved and see what's going on that way.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just going to throw a little plug in there too. So here we are now certified through AFSP to do Safe Talk, which is a suicide prevention course.
Nice.
And so that is a free course that we offer to anybody. So again, if you guys are in a community, you're in a business, you guys want to have some suicide prevention implemented into what you're doing, reach out to us on the website or on our social, and we would be happy to talk to you about that and get something scheduled. Come out and provide that information to you. So that's one thing that we just started doing, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
I like being able to provide it. It is a hard topic and there's a lot of information, but I've had so many friends and personal experience with it that I am very honored to be able to provide that to people now, and it's free. So just reach out to us. We would love to connect with you on that side of things as far as suicide prevention. Well, as we kind of wrap up, we've kind of covered a lot about mental health first aid. We've talked about suicide. We've talked about local resources. What are a couple things that you would really like just to either re-hit or put out there as far as if somebody wants more information or if somebody's struggling with something, what would you want to give them as far as your advice? We're going to give advice at this point, not just reassurance. We're going to give advice.
My opinion, my thoughts. Yeah, I would think if you're going to learn one thing, okay, two things. I lied. You're going to learn two things. And one of them is going to be warning signs and symptoms. If you want to look at suicide prevention in particular, just Googling warning signs of suicide or warning signs of a mental health challenge. See what it looks like when somebody might be needing help. And then one resource, pick 988, pick your EAP, pick something that you can connect people to if you do encounter somebody experiencing those symptoms. I mean, that would be like if that was all I could get everyone to do, that's what I would get everyone to do.
Well, I say the warning signs. I really like that you mentioned that. That's huge. When we started this podcast, that was the biggest thing that we had a lot of people reach out to. As I was telling part of my personal story, my wife's told her story. People have come up to us and said, I wish I would have known. I wish I would have known what to look for. I wish I would have noticed these things. Now that I've heard this, I'm more aware.
Yeah.
And I see things and I'm noticing things, and they appreciate having that information of what to watch for. I think that's huge. And I'm glad that you brought that up because really that's one of the biggest things is what to watch for.
Yeah. It's like even if you get to that point and you're like, I'm not really sure what to do after that, at least being able to notice that something is wrong and then tell someone, I think something is wrong. Can you help me?
Yeah, something's going on and we need to have a conversation or somebody needs to talk
Yeah.
to him. That's huge right there. And sometimes if you just see something, all you have to do is show the person you care.
Yeah, really.
So that's great. Thank you for that. Well, we end every one of these episodes where I get to turn the tables on you. We've only known each other a little bit. We got to co-teach and and learn a little bit about each other. But what question do you have for me that maybe you want to know that has been on your mind since we kind of started this together a little bit?
Is there like a parameter for this?
I'm going to leave it open for you.
Okay, because I have a question that I'm often grappling with in my line of work that I'm sure you have insight with, and it's probably a bigger conversation. But if you could give me like any advice on supporting men's mental health in particular, it's something that I struggle to understand.
Well, and that's it. Like you said, that is probably a very bigger conversation.
Right.
But the biggest thing, since I've been part of the I Love You Bro group and really got to interact with a lot of different men, the one thing that I have found is we just want to be heard. As far as a lot of us just don't feel validated or we don't feel heard when we're trying to express something we're going through. And because of that, we as men we end up just suppressing those because I'm not going to tell anybody because nobody gives a shit anyway. It's kind of how it comes off. And so that would be my biggest thing that I've learned is being able to make sure that they're validated. Like you started off when we talked. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry that you're going through that. That right there, that little bit of validation while talking to a man going through something is huge on changing their perspective and changing the outcome of whatever they're going through. I've had guys in our group that have gone through divorce, substance abuse, sexual abuse, handful of different things. And by validating that you listen to them and that you are there, changes their whole perspective. And you can really change, you can see the change in their face and their emotions when you do that. So I said that would be my first thing I would say as far as with men and mental health is the validation. They just want to know somebody is listening and somebody cares.
Nice. That's really helpful. Thanks.
And I would say the second part with just working with men in general is letting them know that there are options. We preach this all the time that there are options for everything and everybody, and not one option is the same for every person. Everybody has their way of getting through something, their way of doing it. Therapy, there are 100 different therapy modalities out there. Find one that works for you. There's options. Let's just not go to the local psychologist at the college and sit down and talk to the students. It's not that. There's lots of options. That was one of the biggest things for me is when I found that I don't have to stick with one therapist or I don't have to stay with this. There's options for me that really kind of relaxed me of, okay, I can make it through this. And so providing options and letting them know that options are available for whatever they're dealing with. There's not just one solution. That's pretty big.
Okay. Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully it helps.
It should. Anything helps.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest reason we do this is we're trying to, again, educate, provide information, sharing stories, sharing our experience, sharing your professional knowledge with everybody here and your experience that you've gone through on how we can help each other, how we can grow, and how we can try to save lives, with connection, with training, with information, with putting plans together. So much we've talked about that we can help out with.
Yeah.
So again, if you guys want any type of training, information, reach out to your local health department, reach out to the state, look at, liveon.org, reach out to us. We do provide full mental health first aid trainings for businesses and communities. We provide your free safe talk suicide prevention here. And then if we're not the right fit for you, again, like I said, options. We might not be the right fit for what you're looking for. We can connect you with somebody that might be the right fit. And that's what we're here to do. You're not going to upset us. You're not going to offend us if you don't want us to come out and help you, because we would love to at least connect you with the right people for the situation. So that's what we're here for. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming down today and spending the time with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And I look forward to hopefully working with you and doing some more stuff as the months go on. And I hate to say that we get busy, but if we get busy, that means we're providing more training and knowledge for people instead of the opposite,
That's true.
the post support, where that's not the fun part of your job.
Right. Yeah.
So,
As long as you're not doing it alone, making sure that, when you do get busy, there's so many people who are doing this work and wanting to help and support. So,
right.
got to remember that.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you again for taking your time today to tune into us, to listen to the information we provide. We couldn't do it without you. We're here because of you, your support, your willingness to share the information with your family, friends, and loved ones. Again, if there's somebody in your life struggling, if there's somebody that's needing help, if you work for a company that you think would benefit from some of this information, pass it on. Share it with somebody. That's what this is all about, is connecting with people and helping everybody live a better life. So again, thank you for tuning in for this episode of Surviving Life's Pickles, and we will see you guys next time.